Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of British Columbia in Canada. British Columbia is the westernmost province in Canada and it borders the United States via Washington, Idaho, Montana, and don't forget Alaska up here. As you can see by this map, we have a lot of mountains. You can see the Rocky Mountains cutting through here, and also the Coast Mountains on this side. All throughout, we have all kinds of beautiful glacial lakes, rivers and streams, waterfalls, all of the beautiful flora and fauna that is associated with big, high, snowy, glaciated peaks. The highest being Mount Fairweather, which is over here on the border with Alaska. I hope you can see up there. What's interesting too along the coastline is that this is one of the few places in the world where we can find fjords, which is created by retreating glaciers, creating these long inlets that lead out to the Pacific Ocean. There are loads of islands out here, as you can see, but the two largest ones are Vancouver Island and Haida Gwaii, which this part down here is all Indigenous Reserve / National Park, one of which is a UNESCO site right there. But before we get to UNESCO, just to point out, on Vancouver Island we have the capital of the province. It is Victoria. Vancouver is just a hop, skip, and a jump away. Vancouver is not the capital of the province. It is Victoria down here at the bottom of Vancouver Island. I know that may be confusing, but it'll make sense throughout history. If you're wondering, like, why isn't it Vancouver? In the same way that Los Angeles isn't the capital of California, New York City is not the capital of New York State. Why isn't Vancouver the capital? It's by far the largest city. Everyone's heard of Vancouver. It's a huge, big, bustling, diverse city. But we'll talk about that later in its history, and of course we'll look at it on the tablet. But let's talk about the UNESCO sites. We're going to be right here on a very tiny island down here at the very tip of this archipelago. And we'll also be talking about some places here in the Rocky Mountains, particularly like this area over here, bordering Jasper and Banff. Let's start there. Grab my tablet. Starting with the Canadian Rocky Mountain Parks. So Banff and Jasper are in Alberta, which I've already covered. I'll link my Alberta video up in the corner there. But the rest of the places this talks about are in British Columbia. The contiguous national parks of Banff, Jasper, Kootenay, and Yoho, as well as the Mount Robson, Mount Assiniboine, and Hamber, as I pronounce that, provincial parks, studded with mountain peaks, glaciers, lakes, waterfalls, canyons, and limestone caves, form a striking mountain landscape. The Burgess Shale Fossil Site, well known for its fossil remains of soft-bodied marine animals, is also found there. Yeah, because once upon a time, all of these mountain peaks were underwater. Can you believe that? These huge, huge soaring peaks, which someday will load. There we go. These beautiful glacial lakes. Remember, if it's the color of blue Gatorade, it's a glacial lake. I think that flavor is called Glacial Freeze or something. All of the cascading waterfalls, the huge mountain peaks. Athabasca Falls. Here. Look at that lake color. Yeah, if it's blue Gatorade, it's a glacial lake. But look at this. Look at that reflection. This water's so pure and clean. Many of these parks are untouched. Where's bears? You can't get to some of these parks the conventional way. You have to take like a helicopter or something like that to get to them because they're tucked away, preserved. The other site that I mentioned is pronounced, once it loads, Skongwai, like that. The village of Ninstance, or pronounced like that, is located on a small island off the west coast of the Queen Charlotte Islands, or Haida Gwaii. Remains of houses, together with carved mortuary and memorial poles, illustrate the Haida people's art and way of life. The site commemorates the living culture of the Haida people and their relationship to the land and sea, and offers a visual key to their oral traditions. Now, there's only one photo here, but there's loads more photos on Google Earth. But you can see what's left of these totem poles here. Very decayed and falling apart, succumbing to nature. But we'll talk about why that is in the history of British Columbia. Let's dig right into that from there. Of course, this place was home to many, many groups of First Nations, the Indigenous peoples of Canada. There are over 200 First Nations groups here. Some of the ones that I can pronounce are the Coast Salish, the Haida, the Squamish, among many others who have names that I don't want to mispronounce, but all throughout, living a very coastal lifestyle or inland mountain lifestyle. A really beautiful culture. A lot of cultures had the potlatch, which was this like ceremony / party. I think it's where we get the word potluck from, where it was like you would have one person who was the star and everyone would come and bring them gifts, and it was all about how elaborate can the gifts be and how much can be showered on this person. And then the neighboring community will be like, oh yeah, well, we have a wedding, they're going to have a huge potlatch. The next community over is, oh yeah, well, we had someone who's turning a certain age and they're gonna have, and it would just be this huge to do, right? This huge social event, the potlatch. The first Europeans wouldn't come to this area until about 1774, when Spanish ships started to sail up along the coast. Later there would be explorations by James Cook and George Vancouver. And many other explorers would come by sea and by land, crossing over the mountains, or from the north here, from Britain, from Russia, from the United States, exploring this land, probably trying to figure out how to exploit it, which the British would eventually figure out. In 1827, the Hudson's Bay Company built a fort right here in what today is Vancouver. And they would build a fort right here in 1843 on Vancouver Island, Fort Victoria, named after the Queen, of course. Now, with the introduction of these Europeans and Americans and Russians came smallpox, and smallpox was extremely devastating to the native populations here. Whole communities wiped out. The island that we talked about in UNESCO, and smallpox hit there, it wiped out almost the entire population, and the rest had to leave. So they left their homes and their sacred totem poles abandoned, which is why it's all decayed now. Thankfully, because it's a UNESCO site, it's all being very well preserved. But it's part of the Indigenous culture that when things go, you let them go, return to the earth. So those totem poles will one day not be here, which is very sad. But there's a community there working on teaching history and culture of the Haida culture there. In 1846, the boundary was established right here between the United States and this British territory, so to say. You know, I always say on my channel that Mother Nature does not make straight lines, right? So this is not a natural border. There's a cat here. There's no river or anything designating that. It's just a line on a map where they drew and decided this would be, at the time it was Oregon, not Washington. This would be the Oregon territory of the United States, and this would be the British territory up here. But not a lot of people lived up here. Most people lived over here on the island. And in 1849, Vancouver Island became a crown colony. Just this island here. People wouldn't move in more into the interior until 1858 with the Fraser Valley Gold Rush. It was a very big to-do. Gold rushes back then were massive waves of immigration, essentially, of people looking to strike it rich. Out in the rivers here, particularly the Fraser River, which is very hard to see on this map. You can see right here, going down into what's now Vancouver, letting out to sea there. But the Fraser is a very long river, going like all up into the Rockies here. But it was a huge gold rush to the point where the British government was like, well, we need to make this a colony. Queen Victoria named herself British Columbia, mainly after the Columbia River, which is just down here. Can you see Seattle? Oh, you can't. Seattle's right here. That's the outlet of the Victoria, the Columbia River. British Victoria. I'm a mess. British Columbia. So many Victorias and Vancouvers around. British Columbia. There was another gold rush in 1862, the Caribou Gold Rush, which also brought a huge population boost, mainly to this area right here, right? So the population was getting so big, so concentrated, that in 1866, these two colonies combined into one. Vancouver Island and British Columbia just became British Columbia, with Victoria as its capital, because at that time it was the largest city. Vancouver would be basically founded at that time, 1866. There were two little settlements here. One was called Granville, which was a little island in the river there, which was a big mill, and also a town called Gastown, combined to create Vancouver, which was established mainly because it was decided this would be the terminus of a huge long railroad going across Canada. It wasn't Canada at that time. It wouldn't be part of Canada until 1871, when it officially became a province of Canada. The population in Vancouver only grew and grew as job opportunities grew and grew. It attracted people from Asia, mainly from China and Chinese areas like Hong Kong, Taiwan, like Chinese-speaking, Cantonese-speaking, Taiwanese-speaking, Mandarin, the Chinese parts of Asia, and also India. There's a very sad event in 1914 called I have to get this right. I've practiced it. I keep mispronouncing it. The Komagata-Maru. Nailed it. Komagata-Maru incident. Many immigrants, of course, faced plenty of discrimination. Just to bump ahead, World War II, the Japanese here were interred, just like they were in the United States after the Pearl Harbor attack. But 1914, Komagata-Maru was a pretty tragic event where a ship came carrying 300 people from India, and the Canadian government said, nope, we don't want people from India, and turned them away. But that was after a very long arbitration period where the people were stuck on the ship. They weren't allowed to leave. The food supplies were low, sometimes non-existent, and they waited to have their justice, and eventually they were sent away, and they had to sail back to India. While they were sailing back to India across the ocean, World War I started. Once they arrived in India, which was of course a British colony, they said, great, get to sign up for war. They said, we don't want to sign up for war, we want to go home. You know, we've been through this massive ordeal, we've sailed across the Pacific twice, we've been mistreated. How dare you mistreat us again? They revolted, and many of those men lost their lives. Unnecessarily, right? If they had just been welcomed in, it wouldn't have been an issue. Very tragic event. But thankfully, discrimination like that against immigrants is not a huge thing in Vancouver like it once was. There's a massive population of Asian Canadians from like Japan, China, Korea, India, all throughout Eastern Asia, Southeast Asia. It's probably the most diverse city in Canada, to be honest. Vancouver has grown and blossomed into a beautiful city. In 2010, they even hosted the Olympics. Now, a more tragic historical event occurred here, mainly in like this area over here, from what I can tell from my research, in 2021, where many Indigenous schools were found to have mass graves, and those graves contained hundreds of bodies of Indigenous children, First Nations children, who lost their lives at these schools, where they were essentially taken from their homes, or even if they were willingly given up, they probably never went back to their parents, and were taught how to live like white people, given white people's names, converted to Christianity, put on white people clothes, eat white people food, speak English. Here it would be English, and French not so much, be more over there. Sorry for my tummy right there. That was very bad timing, tummy. And these schools were not so much schools, It was integrate or not, as those children would. I'm trying to make this respectful, and I don't have words for it. It's devastating, right? I feel like the ripple effect among the First Nations and Canada and Canadians is still being felt. The gravity of that situation is still something that people in Canada are processing, and it's extremely tragic. But that is essentially the history of British Columbia. It's a huge province. Canada is gigantic. It has no business being so massive, but here we are. Now we have a lot to explore on Google Earth because, of course, every corner of this province is absolutely stunning. So we're going to play around and look at some sites. If I don't mention a site that you think I should, because there's a whole bunch of parks and mountains and lakes and things, if there's one in particular you think should be highlighted that I didn't, let me know down in the comments. Drop it down below. We'll go check it out together. But with that being said, let's hop over to my tablet and check out British Columbia on Google Earth. Here we are in British Columbia. Let's zoom out so you can see exactly where we are in the world. Here's massive Canada, the second largest country in the world after Russia. And it's taking up this huge western chunk over here. You can see real quick, devastating news for me because I live here in beautiful Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. But my passport is expired. Otherwise, I would just drive up here for about an hour and I would be in British Columbia. Someday I'm going to visit this town right here, Cranbrook, because that's our sister city over in Canada. Tragic, but I wish I could show you some footage of me in British Columbia, but my passport's expired. It's 2025. In this day and age, crossing the border is probably a bad idea anyway. So someday I'll show you me in Canada and British Columbia. Not anytime soon. All right, let's start over in Vancouver. We may as well. Big old beautiful Vancouver. Now up here is Stanley Park, which is crazy because the Stanley Cup playoffs are happening as I speak. Well, not as I speak. Game 4 just ended? I think game 4? Game 5? I forget. I'm rooting for the Oilers. But I'm okay if the Panthers win. I like both teams. But here you can see the totem poles that you saw in my intro. And this is just a massive, huge park. apparently the first white settlers planned to keep this area just green and plain in case the Americans invaded. They could hide out in this forested area. But now it's all beautiful, preserved, lots of gorgeous indigenous art and monuments. You can see the city skyline there. And it's very lovely. There's the totem poles, the seawall. Vancouver Aquarium is there. I remember it was the first aquarium in Canada. I remember my facts. Old lighthouse there. All of these slideshows are great. There's the bridge we saw. I'd highly recommend you coming and checking out all of the slideshows in this park, but we have so much to see. Let's head down to... I have to show you... goodness, I forgot. Gastown. That's what I want to show you. So this was the original town. The highlight here is the steam clock, where we have this steampunk clock. You can see the old buildings here, all lit up, all pretty. This clock that is run by steam power. You can see the steam coming out there. This is like the highlight of the neighborhood, which you have to come see if you visit Gastown. The steam clock, pretty cool. Over here, right? No, that's the Naval Museum. Lost Lagoon, so cool. What was over here? I thought at least. What happened to Granville? I'm super lost. I thought, hey Tommy, my goodness. Granville. Granville Island. Was it not over here? Am I mistaken? I'm very mistaken. It's over here. Granville Island. So this was the original town, along with the gas town up there, was where this whole city started. As you can see, it's just sprawling out all over the place. An iconic place over here is Science World, mostly for its exterior, because it's pretty cool. It lights up all kinds of different colors. Of course, there's lots of science inside. We love that. But yeah, it lights up all pretty. How neat is that? Look how cool. Wow, look at this. Wow. Big old pterodactyl thing. All kinds of dinosaurs here. We love that. Over here's where the Vancouver Canucks play. I don't often get to talk about the NHL, so I'll take every opportunity. I'm not a Canucks fan, but I do appreciate them. I've seen them many times in San Jose. Go Sharks. Please go Sharks. Do something, Sharks. Anyway. There's all kinds of things to see here in Vancouver. Let's look at the Museum of Vancouver. There's a little crab. Not a little crab, that's a pretty big crab, but I like this museum because it gives you like the slice of life, what life used to be like here in Vancouver. At different time periods. There's a big old sliced up tree, old canoe, old TV, old kitchen here. It reminds me of like when I'm in places like Turkey over there, where they have regional museums where you can see how people once lived. This is the Canadian part. See how people once dressed in snazzy bowler hats and things. Little couches. There's all kinds of things to see here in Vancouver. I'd highly encourage you to go check out all of the wonderful sights here, but we just don't have time. There's just way too much to see. Let's hop down to Victoria. Make sure we don't wind up in Washington. Victoria, the capital of British Columbia. Don't get it twisted. It's not Vancouver. Royal BC Museum. Look at all of these beautiful totem poles. Woolly mammoth. deer, some bears, some sea lions, birds, seals. Big difference between seals and sea lions. And look at this. Looks like an old longhouse here. The museum. Beautiful. The indigenous art in this corner of the world is just something else, isn't it? It's so iconic. Wow. The cars are cool. Little deer. There is a castle here, built by a coal baron, if I remember. Very fancy. All snazzy. Look at that. Pretty iconic. Beacon Hill Park's really pretty, but I want to show you, I have to remember now where Chinatown is up here. Even though Vancouver's Chinatown is very famous, second only to my hometown in San Francisco's Chinatown. Victoria's Chinatown has an interesting little site, if it'll pop up. Right here. This is the narrowest street in North America. Ta-da! Here it is. The narrowest street in North America. Here in Victoria's Chinatown. Look at the Chinatown gate there, so pretty. So of course there's a large Chinese population here as well. Let me just pull up Victoria's slideshow. You can see all the little islands out here. Let me remove this. Victoria. Just so we can get a good overview of some of the more historic sites around here without me getting lost. There's this beautiful old-timey hotel, the Empress. You can see all these classic buildings here. Look at that. It's so pretty. The architecture here is stunning. Look at this. Look at this. It's also pretty. It's also detailed and intricate, isn't it? I want to say it's like Edwardian style, but it almost looks like St. Paul's, doesn't it? It's also pretty here. It's a beautiful little city. Alright, now we've seen all the city stuff. It's time to look at nature. So let's start here on Vancouver Island. Here's the Pacific Rim National Park Reserve. Great movie, by the way, Pacific Rim. But look at all the things we can see. Look at this beautiful tree. All of this nature. All of this beautiful shoreline here on the island. Stunning, stunning. Bring your pup. Check out this nature. Look at those waves crashing. Another totem there. Totem pole. An old lighthouse. There's all kinds of slideshows here. But we might come back to them. Let's look at the UNESCO site while we're over here. It is on this tiny island here. There it is. Skongwai, it's called. And so here are these very old totem poles that are just becoming part of nature again, which is apparently what they're supposed to do. So it's okay. It's just sad that we'll be losing this someday. This looks like a place where they made the totem poles, doesn't it? They are watching over the ocean. Slowly decaying. They are made of wood. Look at that. It's so haunting. It also has this Easter Island vibe to it, doesn't it? It's like the same energy. It's so pretty. Look at this old abandoned island due to tragic circumstances, of course. That's the UNESCO site. this is the reserve slash like national park, I guess. More beautiful totem poles, beautiful trees. This kind of nature that's just so distinct to this corner of the world. All of this beautiful artwork that's left behind, being saved today, thankfully. This rugged landscape. Wow. Let's see. We have this provincial park as well. Last island slideshow, then we'll head to the mountains. But look at this coastline. Look at that. It's massive. Oh, beauty. Oh my gosh. Wow. Balanced rock. Old shipwreck. Look at that. Oh, that's really haunting. Wow. I'll wash it up on shore. A little plaque there that you can read more about Indigenous culture here. Alright, let's head to these mountains. We have to be careful not to wind up in Alaska. I've already covered Alaska. We don't need to look at it anymore, unfortunately. It's so beautiful. But let's check out what we can find here. Here really mean business, don't they? Oh wow. Long moraines there. The ice slowly creeping down the mountains. Let's see. This is a pretty one, Garibaldi. The beautiful, clear, crisp water. Beautiful fields and trees. You can take these little ski lifts up so you're not hiking around, trampling over this beautiful nature. Still enjoying it. Look at that. It's so pretty. So yeah, pretty much the rest of these slideshows are going to look like this. There's a bunch I want to show you, just because they're all so beautiful. But after a while, it's like, okay, we've seen 500 mountains, right? But they're all so pretty. Let's head up, actually, up here. Let me get the borders up just so we don't wind up in Canada. We are in Canada, in Alaska. I'm really good at names today, because we want to look at Mount Fairweather. Let me adjust this so I can see it. It's not popping up. Let's just look at this park then. Oh wow, look at this glacier. See that big old moraine right here, going out into the water. And from above, it is really something else here. Here's a long moraine as well. Oh wow, imagine all the adventures you have on this river. All the things you say. Oh no, we're not in Yukon, are we? Uh-oh. 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 No, we're in BC. That terrified me. Maybe it goes up into the Yukon. Let's look at this one. See, if you're wondering, why can't you just try to pronounce the Indigenous names? I'm not going to try. I'm not going to. Not today. Not today. How stunning. Head over to the Rockies. Oh, what a neat building there. Let's go to the Rockies. You have to be careful not to wind up in Alberta. We've already talked about Alberta. Alright. We have... of course, there's all these different peaks here. I want to be able to show you one that was a UNESCO site. Here's Mount Robson. Amazing there. Those snow lines or something else. Mount Robson Park. Look at that. Wow. That is a mountain peak for sure. It's gorgeous. I hope I can find Mount Assiniboine. I might just type it in because it's also gorgeous. It looks like the Matterhorn to me. We'll see if you agree. It's somewhere around here. There's Jasper. We don't want to go over there. We already went there. We want to see Glacier. Glacier is in British Columbia. Yeah, look at this photo. Just take that in for a minute. That is stunning, this photograph. That looks computer generated, doesn't it? It's so pretty. Look at this. It is something else. I'm not sure what that's supposed to be. Or that. Huh. It's neat, but I don't know what it is. Oh, cool bridge. Look at all of these trees. Oh, imagine how good the air must feel here in your lungs. It's almost biting, I bet. It's so crisp and clean, it probably feels like unnatural. Unless you're from a place like this, I suppose. Alright, I want to show you. We're going to wind up in America. Not today. Where is... They're heading back to the coast, I'm sorry. I just thought of... I can't remember where they would do the skiing and stuff events for the Olympics. Somewhere over here, but I don't remember. Anyway, someone will let me know down in the comments. But we want to see Mount Assiniboine. Let's see if I remember how to spell it. It's Mount Assiniboine. Yeah, that's exactly how you spell it. There it is. Doesn't it look like the Matterhorn? Look at it. It's like the Matterhorn's twin, or at least like sibling. And again, remember, all of this was underwater once upon a time. This was under the ocean. All this. Crazy. It looks like the Matterhorn. Is it just me? Does anyone else agree? The Matterhorn, if you don't know, is in Switzerland. It's in the Alps. And to me, it looks just like this. I've already looked at the Matterhorn on my channel, too. Look at, oh my gosh, wait, let me put it in 3D. So huge. Oh, it's so pretty. That's amazing. Let's play around in the peaks for a second. We're probably going to wind up in Alberta, but that's okay. Wow. Can you imagine all those like British fur traders crossing these mountains to find some otters, trying to find the shoreline? Can you imagine seeing these peaks for the first time? Just goes on forever. The Rocky Mountains are so amazing. Alright, let's see where we wound up. Are we still in BC? I think we are. What's happened here? Here we go. I think we were still in BC. Look at that. Yeah, but you can like click on all of these different little slideshows here. There's so many. And they're all so stunning. A raging river there with all the glacial water, all the waterfalls. It's all so amazing. They're all great. Like you see all the different little things popping up. There's so many. We go up here. Let's see. Northern Rocky Mountains. Sure, we're still in British Columbia. So pretty. This looks more like where I live in Idaho. Because I'm not terribly far from this mountain range. There's bears here. I love a good bear. All bears are valid. There's a little church up there too. It's all great. Let's look at this last one. Spatsizi Plateau. I tried. My goodness. Wait. You could flip this over and it would look like the sky and the water are the same. Amazing. Keep your trails weed free. Seaplanes here, because that's probably the only way you can get here. This majestic king of the forest there. Wow. Oh, a sweet fox looking very startled. He caught a big old fish. Beautiful flowers. Big old rock. And a moose. That's a very small moose. Moose are way too big. Moose are massive. Alright, I think that's where I'm going to cap it for today. We could go over all kinds of different areas here. There's so many. But I'm going to stop myself. Let's look at one more to end the video. Let's go over here. We didn't really see like this coastal area, did we? Let's see. That one doesn't have a slideshow. How can that be? Maybe it's isolated. Let's look at Ruby Rock Lake. Also does not have a slideshow. Goodness. We looked at that one. Let's head back to the Rockies then. The Rockies are good to us. Let's look at this one. Gorgeous. Here we go. Oh, wait, it's crashing. Hold on. 1 second while this crashes. Unless it's not. Okay, never mind. Thank you so much for watching. Let me wrap this up before Google Earth crashes. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy this style of content, please consider subscribing. We have 2 more places to go in the world that start with British. We're going in alphabetical order. But this next one we're going to is very interesting. It has made some geography breaking news lately, in that pretty soon most of it may not be British anymore. So you'll have to subscribe to figure out what I'm talking about. Very exciting. Also, can you guess what the other British places I'm talking about? 3 places. Let's start with British. We have British Columbia. We'll have British Indian Ocean Territory. And what else? Do you know? Let me know in the comments if you can think of it. Please give this video a thumbs up if you're still awake. Let me know your thoughts down below. How did I do, Canadians? I always try my best with Canada. It's such a special country. I'm a big NHL fan. I want to do Canada well. Go Sharks. Anyway. I hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational. And I hope that you have a good